Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the synthesis of yoga with our beloved Ranga. We are on page 12. It is chapter 2, the 3 steps of nature, and page 12, the last line, begins with the mental life thus evolving in man.
So, the chapter is the 3 steps of nature. And he has told us earlier that these 3 steps he divides in this way. The first is what nature has already established and developed quite stably. The second is that which is developing, which is the mind, mental life. And the next is that which has to be developed, that's the yogic life. So these are the 3 steps of nature. So first step he has told you already that nature has created a harmony between matter and life and has produced living creatures. So all living creatures are a combination of matter and life. So now he comes to mental life. This is that which is evolving. So we read the para. The mental life thus evolving in man is not indeed a common possession. In actual appearance, it would seem as if it were only developed to the fullest in individuals and as if there were great numbers and even the majority in whom it is either a small or ill-organized part of their normal nature or not evolved at all or latent and not easily made active. Certainly, the mental life is not a finished evolution of nature. It is not yet firmly founded in the human animal. The sign is that the fine and full equilibrium of vitality and matter, the sane, robust, long-lived human body is ordinarily found only in races or classes of men who reject the effort of thought, its disturbances, its tensions, or think only with the material mind. Civilized man has yet to establish an equilibrium between the fully active mind and the body. He does not normally possess it. Indeed, the increasing effort towards a more intense mental life seems to create frequently an increasing disequilibrium of the human elements, so that it is possible for eminent scientists to describe genius as a form of insanity, a result of degeneration, a pathological morbidity of nature. The phenomenon which are used to justify this exaggeration, when taken not separately but in connection with all other relevant data, point to a different truth. Genius is one attempt of the universal energy to so quicken and intensify our intellectual powers that they shall be prepared for those more puissant, direct and rapid faculties which constitute the play of the supra-intellectual or divine mind. It is not then a freak, an inexplicable phenomenon, but a perfectly natural next step in the right line of her evolution. She has harmonized the bodily life with the material mind. She is harmonizing it with the play of the intellectual mentality. For that, although it tends to a depression of the full animal and vital vigor, need not produce active disturbances. And she is shooting yet beyond in the attempt to reach a still higher level. Nor are the disturbances created by her process as great as is often represented. Some of them are the crude beginnings of new manifestations, others are an easily corrected movement of disintegration, often fruitful of fresh activities, and always a small price to pay for the far-reaching results that she has in view. So, big para, and he's saying a lot of things. So
many things. Yes.
Always he packs, each sentence also is packed with all sorts of ideas and things. So, let's get back to the beginning of the... So, very clearly he is saying that all men are not really mental creatures yet.
But he says, actually, in actual appearance, it would seem as if all were only developed in...
That's right. But he also says, certainly afterwards he says, it would seem as though, okay? So, let's see that carefully again. The mental life thus evolving in man is indeed a common... is not indeed a common possession. Therefore, most human people are not really logical and objective in their mind. That's what it means. Okay? In fact, they are more guided by their body needs and their vital needs. The vital and the body influence the mind much more than in the generality of mankind. Those who are thinkers, those who are slightly evolved, they try to use the mind in a more objective manner. That's what he's saying. In actual appearance, it would seem as if it were only developed to the fullest in individuals and as if there were great numbers. So this is seeming. It seems as though many people are...
Yes.
It's the opposite. Okay, he's saying that it will look as though everybody is intellectual and intelligent and using their mind in the right way. And as if there were great numbers, that many people are mentally developed. And even the majority in whom it is either a small or ill-organized part of their normal nature, or not evolved at all, or latent and not easily made active. And even the majority, he is saying, are great numbers, in whom is either a small or ill-organized part of their normal nature, or not evolved at all, or latent and not easily made active.
So not evolved at all.
Yeah.
Powerful statement.
Not evolved at all. I'll tell you, we even have a case in the ashram. Okay, I think medically they call them mongoloids.
Yes, mongoloids.
Those who are not developed at all, and even they're almost like an animal. They stick their neck out and go like that. There is no thinking capacity of any sort, nothing. So you have to help them very, very often.
But what kind of percentage is that of the world?
What kind?
What kind of percentage is that of the world's population?
That percentage is a very small percentage, not a very big one.
Okay, yes.
Because the biggest percentage is those who are human animal, as you said.
Yes, yes.
They are not mental, nor are they absolutely undeveloped. They are human animal. Okay? So, even the animal has got logic.
Yes.
So, some sort of physical logic is there in most men. Okay. But not intellectual logic. He tells you that there are three minds. We'll discuss that. Okay. So, not made easily. Certainly, very clear statement. The mental life is not a finished evolution of nature. Human beings are still developing and trying to become really mental creatures. Okay. And that's what he's saying. It is not yet firmly founded in the human animal. Very, very clear. Okay? They are not intellectual men. They are not real human beings. They are animal humans.
I remember once in one of Nolini's books, he begins saying that in order to reach the supermental, we may have to take a step down from the mind into the vital.
Okay.
That's an interesting...
That
if you can comment on that.
That is to say that the supermind, when it descends, it would naturally affect very easily the mind. Why the supermind? Even the spiritual planes of consciousness, the light can enter more easily in the mind. But it can enter with more difficulty even into the vital. So those who have experienced light, they will feel the light coming up to their head or even up to their externalizing mind. They'll feel the light has stopped here. But if you are a very developed person and you are pure, you may feel the light going right up to your solar plexus. But in some of those cases, he says the golden light will come down into my feet. So, what he means, what you are saying means that the supermental has to change not only mind and vital, but it has to change the lowest layer of the physical mind. And when the supramental changes the physical mind, he calls it the mind of light. That's what is meant, what you're saying. So it has to come down to that lowest level. Okay? So, certainly the mental life is not a finished evolution of nature. It is not yet firmly founded in the human animal. The sign is, now that's very interesting what he's saying. The sign is that the fine and full equilibrium of vitality and matter, the sane, robust, long-lived human body is ordinarily found only in races or classes of men who reject the effort of thought, its disturbances, its tensions, or think only with the material mind.
That's a powerful statement.
So, the moment your mind gets developed, the whole attention is shifted to the mind, and there's a disbalance between the body, vital, and mind. But so long as you are a human animal, you are living only at the bodily life, which is already quite stable and developed.
What I don't understand is, for example, the Hunza people who live to 120 and more years. They're not developed mentally?
He is not making an absolute statement, he is making a general statement. So you would see that most of these people who live like that, they are in harmony with nature and they live an ordinary life. They are not intellectual people. In fact, very often you will see that such people live in the countryside, not in cities.
True. Very true.
And if you live in the city, in fact, this was the great difference between Gandhi and Sri Aurobindo. Gandhi says, let's go back to the village life. That is simple, pure, and that is, we'll be in harmony with nature. Sri Aurobindo disagrees. He says that the real development of civilization always takes place in cities. Even in Greece, okay? All the great discoveries are with interchange and exchange of ideas, and all the intellectual life is always in the cities. Very rarely will you find a scientist living remotely in a village. It doesn't happen.
And the greatest culture also, music,
absolutely,
art,
absolutely.
cities.
That's why. So, going back, there is also an American, Thoreau, I think he was his name.
Thoreau, yes.
Yeah. He also thought that life should be simple and we should go back to nature. And this machinery and all these things are not a very good thing. Gandhi was much influenced by him. Okay? But it's not necessarily true. It is true that you can live a purer life, but there won't be any progress. Intellectual progress will not be there. So that's what he means. So, he says that the full equilibrium of vitality and matter, the sane, robust, long-lived human body is ordinarily found only in races or classes of men who reject the effort of thought. Now, if you come back to the next part, it will become very clear. Its disturbances, its tensions, or think only with the material mind. Now, we'll just make it clear.
Races or classes of men.
Yeah.
He makes a specific statement there.
Those are, for instance, the pygmies in Central Africa, or those who are in the Amazon forest. Okay, even today there are people, tribes living in the Amazon forest who never come in contact with human beings, civilized human beings. So this sort of thing. But they may not have a long life not because they are mentally, but they are open to diseases. So you have to be very careful. So what Srimla is saying is, someone who is exposed to a mental life yet not developed. You have to be very careful about what he's saying. Because I don't think that pygmies live 120 years and 130 years. Nor maybe the Amazon Delta, the tribes who live there.
And you have Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah.
Countries have more life expectancy.
Pardon?
The countries who are developed countries have longer life expectancy.
Yeah.
So the people touch 100 years and then they themselves go and say that, okay, I want to die because it's not bringing anything.
Yeah.
So
now we'll see what he's saying. The sign is are found only in races or classes of men who reject the effort of thought, its disturbances, its tensions, or think only with the material mind. Sridhar is using the word material mind. We have the mind itself goes from the lowest level to the highest level. Just as matter also goes from the lowest level to the highest level. All these four principles of Satchidananda, they are there everywhere. Here, but in different proportions. So mind is there involved in matter. He says elsewhere that in the plant life, it is involved. In the animal mind, it is imprisoned. And it starts becoming, maybe it's here in this paragraph only. And in human beings, it can be developed. So mind is there. The lowest mind in man is the physical mind, which we call in Indian philosophy manas. It is that part of the brain which interprets only the senses.
So he's saying material mind is the physical mind?
Yes. And there is also a vital mind, and there is a pure intellectual mind. We have three layers. Most human beings live in the vital mind and the physical mind. Most people. Those who are intellectuals, that's different. We'll come to that, he will explain. And not only that, when you come to a mental life, all sorts of tensions come. It is very doubtful whether in pygmies and in the Amazon Delta they have blood pressure and anxiety. Very doubtful. Huh?
Yes.
Because there's nothing to be, there's no anxiety. They're just living an ordinary life. But here today in modern life, you have a deadline. Okay? They'll tell you, okay, develop this program, but I can't give you 2 weeks. You have to do it in 1 week. Tension comes. Also, 5 to 9 or 9 to 5. Okay? You have a life. You have to do work and they will put pressure on you. So mental life is always giving you pressure. That's exactly what it is. So disturbances arise. Mm-hmm. In fact, it's very common now. We see. In fact, so many people are nowadays consulting psychologists.
Oh, yes.
Psychiatrists, as they say in American English. Okay? So, because they are disturbed. Even this COVID, okay? People are so used to company and mixing with people and all that. Tremendous tensions have developed even in children because they are stuck at home. So, that's exactly what he's mentioning. That mental life is not yet harmonized fully with the body and mind. Okay, that has yet to be done.
And physical mind and physical memory are the same thing. For example, somebody who goes in coma, still he will not forget how to eat and how to talk and how to react in a normal way. Physical memory and physical mind.
What do you mean by physical memory?
Mental memory. Like for example, if somebody goes in coma, but he will not forget how to walk and cycle.
No, wait. In coma, you are not conscious at all.
After coma, like for example, once he forgot everything, but he will not forget how to do the routine things. So that part of mind is what? That is also physical mind. Is that?
When you are walking, okay, does the mind come into the picture?
Let's say driving.
I don't think so. Because even a caterpillar can walk. There is no mind. Mind doesn't come in.
After some time, these things become automatic, In the beginning, you consciously drive, but after sometimes you are talking, eating and driving.
Yeah. For instance, if you do what is called somnambulism.
Sleepwalking.
Okay, sleepwalking. The mind is not acting. The mind is silent. So what you are saying, that's not the physical mind.
Maybe some memory in the physical which is hidden, and that is what is acting at that time.
You could say that the memory is there hidden in the body, but that's not the physical mind. The physical mind is...
To reflexes, we have some reflexes.
No, I'm not referring to reflexes. Even mother said, like for example, if you have read 4-digit number, let's say you're following a car, 8489. Sometimes that number will keep popping up inside you, throughout the day.
That is the mechanical mind.
Mechanical mind, yes.
That is the mechanical mind. For instance, you hear a tune. This is very common experience. Common. When you hear a tune, whether you want it or not, it will go on spinning in your mind. So that's a mechanical mind.
So that's even bottom. That's even more bottom, that mind.
It's an adjunct of physical mind.
That's the correct answer, yes. Adjunct.
It's an adjunct of physical
mind.
Then there is the vital mind, the mind that is supporting your desires and effectuating them. That's a vital mind. The pure mind is that which does not allow your vital needs and your body needs to affect you. That's a pure mind. Okay? That's the intellectual mind. Some also call it the reason or pure mind. Okay? So, 3 levels. So, here he is talking of the material mind. Civilized man has yet to establish an equilibrium between the fully active mind and the body. So, civilized man has not yet been able to do that. That's why he gets into tension and all. But if you are a yogi, then you will be able to, because you are going beyond the even pure mind. You are going into the higher mind, and then there is calm and quiet is possible. Okay.
But how to do it when you are surrounded by animal minds?
Pardon?
You are surrounded by the animal mind, let's say, and suddenly you start feeling this pure mind. Okay, so now you feel like some sort of a disadjustment, like you don't like the normal thing, you don't like gossips, you don't like, you have started rejecting routine things, right? So then how to be yogi while reviewing?
I don't think what you're saying has anything to do with the mind. Not liking things and all that is more vital. That's right.
Yeah, but pure mind, when you have the pure mind comes, there are changes in your physical desires and there are changes in your...
Oh, wait. The physical mind is not something that comes suddenly. It is something that develops through many lives.
Yes, like you have...
Yeah, you are born with a capacity of a mental life. Some are not born with the capacity of a mental life. Of course, you can develop your mind. There's no doubt about it. That's why Srimad is saying, look very carefully. He's saying latent. Srimad is so accurate. In some, it is not evolved at all. But in others, it is latent. In those in my physical, the pure mind is latent, they can develop it. It doesn't come suddenly. But you have the mother says, just like you develop your muscles with exercise, you can do the same with your mind. You can exercise and force it to understand things, and then you can raise your level. That's possible. See, that's why Srimad is saying, so many levels, He's very clear. Latent or not easily made active. So, even if it is latent, there is one which can be made active, but there is some latency which you cannot make active. How accurate he is.
Yes, very.
Okay, so we go to the next one. So he says,
Indeed.
Indeed, the increasing effort towards a more intense mental life seems to create frequently, note the word seems, to create frequently an increasing disequilibrium of the human elements. What are the human elements? Body, life and mind. So that it is possible for eminent scientists to describe genius as a form of insanity, a result of degeneration, a pathological morbidity of nature.
But when did science begin saying that?
There are some cases. There's one particularly, a film has been made on this. He was a Nobel Prize winner. Okay, the title of the movie is A Beautiful Mind.
Yes, Russell Crowe.
Yeah. So there, he was the actor. Crowe was the actor.
Yes, he was the actor.
Yeah, but he was a
scientist.
Genius. Okay, mathematics and statistics and all that. He had done a lot of work, but he was psychologically unstable. That's what Srinanda means by, if the mind is developed, there is a disequilibrium between the body and the life. That's what he's saying. So,
like he couldn't even shave as easily as a normal man.
Pardon?
He could not even shave. In the movie they showed that physically coordination was lacking, but mentally he could perceive through the future also.
In fact, yeah, he was he had a mental life, but there was no organized harmony with the lower parts.
Yes.
In fact, he was so,
Are there other people like Aryabhat and all, like who had developed mind, but they were able to have a normal life also, like yogis, right?
of course.
So what is the difference? Like why this happened? Like it's like a case
Oh,
basis.
but why do you think that nature is producing the same line? Nature goes here, nature goes there, nature goes there. It produces 100 types. You know? Are all the mangoes on one tree same? They are essentially same, but there is always a difference. So, nature produces also. In fact, he told you, I think we have read that, nature is not, it's not a regular march. She has leaps and bounds, and she goes up and she comes down and she explores this avenue, that avenue. She creates a species and lets it die out. Okay? All sorts of things.
But it's an experimental play.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Civilized man has yet to establish an equilibrium between the fully active mind and the body. He does not normally possess it. Who? The civilized man. He does not possess what? The equilibrium. Okay? A working equilibrium sometimes possible, but not fully developed. Okay? And this is also, Simla will tell you later on, that to say that this is always a mental developed, you are disequilibrium, that's an exaggeration. He will tell you that later on. Okay? So he's saying, that's why he said he seems to create. Okay? So that eminent scientists can say that. I think he is referring particularly to some eminent scientists, but I don't know who that is. But he's saying that that's possible as a form of insanity, a result of degeneration, a pathological morbidity of nature. The phenomena which are used to justify this exaggeration, there you are, okay, when taken not separately, but in connection with all other relevant data, point to a different truth. It is not that mental development is always going to give you a disequilibrium. That's not true. That's what he's saying. Okay? And he's explaining what? Genius is one attempt of the universal energy, nature, to so quicken and intensify our intellectual powers that they shall be prepared for those more puissant, direct and rapid faculties which constitute the play of the supra-intellectual or divine mind. Okay? So he's saying genius is, nature is trying to go beyond what she has already developed. That's what he's saying. And in that process, sometimes you have to pay a small price. But he says it doesn't matter. It's worth it. So, genius is one attempt of the universal energy. Universal energy you can replace by nature. To so quicken and intensify. By the way, quicken, it doesn't always mean to make quick. It means to give birth also. Yeah. To quicken, create, give birth, okay? To, where is it gone? Quicken and intensify our mental powers. Why? So that they shall be prepared for those more puissant, direct and rapid faculties which constitute the play of the supra-intellectual or divine mind. So what are these rapid faculties? Faculties which are there above the mind in the spiritual planes of consciousness. For instance, your capacity for understanding things increases very much, okay? Your physical senses are replaced by sight. That is one faculty. You start seeing the truth. Then you have ESP, extrasensory perceptions. So those are the faculties which he is saying. So if the mind is developed, the possibility of supra-physical, supra-intellectual and divine mind, the possibilities are more manifested. That's what he's saying. But it's an interesting question. Is it possible for a developed consciousness to come in someone who is not mentally fully developed? That's an interesting question. Okay.
Sri Aurobindo has done it.
Sri Aurobindo is an extreme example and rare.
Yes.
Okay. But mental development normally is necessary. A minimum amount of mental development is necessary. Now look at Ramakrishna. He was illiterate. But that does not mean to say that he was mentally unintelligent. You will see that very often illiterate people are very intelligent people. This is seen very often in India, where we have a democracy and most of the people live in the villages. They may be illiterate, but they make the right choice. They throw a government out if they are not satisfied with it. So this is a very interesting thing, that illiteracy is not lack of mental development, it's lack of opportunity. So that we have to be very careful. We have usually a judgment, oh, he is illiterate, he is undeveloped, he has no mind. That's not true at all. Very often there, in fact, there is another thing interesting. Those who are, what is the word? They have a problem with their mind. Autistic children.
Yes.
Okay? Autistic children can't distinguish between M and W, for instance, or they can't distinguish the sequence of words. Okay, they have trouble with that. But they are highly intelligent. Okay, so the play of superintelligence. It is not then, what is not then? The phenomenon of genius. Not then a freak, an inexplicable phenomenon, but a perfectly natural next step in the right line of our evolution. So those who are trying to develop their mind, but sometimes they suffer a disequilibrium and a psychological disability, it is not a freak. It is only a side product of nature's attempt to go to the next level. That's what he's saying. Okay? Certainly all Nobel Prize winners, all intellectual men are not psychologically disabled. Certainly not. So, she has harmonized, nature has harmonized the bodily life with the material mind. She is harmonizing it with the play of the intellectual capacity. So that's why Swami is saying, mental life is still developing. She is in the process of doing that. Everybody is not intellectualized, but the attempt is going on in nature. That's what he's saying. Okay, so for that, although it tends to a depression of the full animal and vital vigor, need not produce active disturbances. As soon as you develop your mind, it is not absolutely necessary that your disturbance will be there in the body and psychological disability will be there. It's not true. That's what he's saying. It's an exaggeration, he has told you earlier. Okay, so but it is a fact that there is a disequilibrium. That's what he's saying. And this disequilibrium also you can see in many grades. For instance, absent-mindedness. Okay, there's a film also, Absent-Minded Professor. So there are those who are intellectually developed. Sometimes they are not very practical in the physical world. Okay, so that's what he's saying. So, for although it tends to depression the full animal, it need not produce active disturbances. And she is shooting yet beyond in the attempt to reach a still higher level. Still higher level, higher than the intellectual mind. Okay? Yeah. Nor are the disturbances created by her process as great as it is often represented. It's an exaggeration to say that mental development will always produce disequilibrium. Not true. Some of them are the crude beginnings of new manifestations. Others are an easily corrected movement of disintegration, often fruitful of fresh activities, and always a small price to pay for the far-reaching results that she has in view. So, even if there's a little disequilibrium, it's a small price to pay for a higher development. In fact, they say, the Americans say, there is no free lunch. So, if you want something, you have to pay a price. So, if you want a higher mental life, you have to pay a small price of a disequilibrium in the lower. That's what he says.
But this is not a matter of choice, na. This is like.
No, it's not a matter of choice at all. It's your development. It's a development through many lives. Okay? It's a slow development. You can't choose to be intellectual. How can What do you mean by choice?
I mean, like, because it brings disharmony, so you don't want to pay the price.
Oh,
and
no,
you were
that-
like, okay, let me go back to my shell, but that's not happened, right?
It's not.
So it will always take forward. You can never go backwards.
Okay, so we may perhaps, if we consider all the circumstances, come to this conclusion that mental life, far from being a recent appearance in man, is a swift repetition in him of a previous achievement from which the energy in the race had undergone one of her deplorable recoils. The savage is perhaps not so much the first forefather of civilized man as the degenerate descendant of a previous civilization. For if the actuality of intellectual achievement is unevenly distributed, the capacity is spread everywhere. It has been seen that in individual cases, even the racial type considered by us the lowest, the Negro, fresh from the perennial barbarism of Central Africa, is capable, without admixture of blood, without waiting for future generations, of the intellectual culture, if not yet of the intellectual accomplishment of the dominant European. Even in the mass, men seem to need, in favorable circumstances, only a few generations to cover ground that ought apparently to be measured in terms of millenniums. Either then, man by his privilege as a mental being is exempt from the full burden of the tardy laws of evolution, or else he already represents, and with helpful conditions and in the right stimulating atmosphere, can always display a high level of material capacity for the activities of the intellectual life. It is not mental incapacity, but the long rejection or seclusion from opportunity and withdrawal of the awakening impulse that creates a savage. Barbarism is not an intermediate sleep.
It is an intermediate sleep.
Barbarism is an intermediate sleep. Okay, I made the note I read earlier. Barbarism is an intermediate sleep, not an original darkness. So, what he's saying is very clear. He's saying that there are no human beings who are absolutely incapable of a mental life. That would be pure barbarism. But it's an intermediate sleep. The development has been there everywhere, but because of lack of opportunities, they have not been able to develop. And he is giving very interesting example of, now, many people who read this para, they will say, oh, Swamda is racial.
Yeah. Against black people or something like that. They would.
And actually, he is saying the opposite.
Exactly.
If you read very carefully, he is saying the opposite.
The opposite. Yeah.
Okay? Because it's a fact that the Central Africa, there was a perennial barbarism. That's true. You can't deny that. Okay? The pygmies in Central Africa were always like that until the colonists came and then they brought new civilization and all that. Okay, so this is what he's saying in the para, that lack of opportunity is a reason for lack of intellectual development.
But
Yes,
he does say without admixture of blood,
Yes.
without waiting for future generations.
That's right. In other words, give an opportunity to such a person, he will be able to develop. He will be able to develop, not immediately perhaps, but within 2 generations or 3 generations, he will be able to come up to that level. In fact, nowadays we have so many Nobel laureates in literature and others who are Negroes from Africa. Okay, there are so many writers, okay, authors also. So that's what Shamla is saying, that intellectual capacity is there everywhere. It is less developed and more developed because of opportunities and the occasions. Okay? So, that's basically. But would you like to go through each sentence with that, please?
I think we could start even in the mass. Men seem to need only a few generations.
That's right.
You covered that already.
Yeah.
Either then, man by his privilege. Let's start
Okay.
there.
Either then, man by his privilege as a mental being is exempt from the full burden of the tardy laws of evolution. Okay? The tardy laws of the evolution, you are a barbarian first and then you become the animal thus developing more and more. But he's saying human beings have the privilege, okay? Either then man, either by his privilege as a mental being, is exempt from the full burden of the tardy laws of evolution. Tardy laws, very slow development and it's a burden. But man is exempted from that tardy law, okay? Or else he already represents, and with helpful conditions and in the right stimulating atmosphere, can always display a high level of material capacity for the activities of the intellectual life. So, even when you see that the person is not being developed, okay, he is not absolutely subjected to the lack of development. The latency is there. That's what he's saying. And very often, if the conditions are helpful, as he's saying, he will exhibit the activities of an intellectual life, he'll be able to do it.
And he says then, man by his privilege as a mental being.
Yes, that's right. Because in the animal, that is not possible. But in man, he has the privilege of the capacity to develop his mind. It may not be developed, it may be latent, or it may not be developed. Or it may not be able to become active, as I said earlier. Okay? So, barbarism is an intermediate sleep, not an original darkness. I think this sentence means that in some places, even if you see barbarians, okay, it is not that they are still at the animal level. If they are a man, then the capacity for development is there. That's what he's saying.
So even barbarics were developed.
Yeah, the capacity. If you put them into the right conditions, they will be able to.
There was a great opera singer who was a Maori, one of the Australian primitives. She became top singer in Metropolitan Opera.
Yeah. I remember there was a, but the Maoris are in New Zealand.
New Zealand, yes.
Not in Australia.
They're in New Zealand, yes.
In Australia, they call them the Aborigines.
Yes.
Yeah, but they are also in great harmony with nature they live. Yes. There's often a lot of wisdom in them. That's right. In fact, there was a tennis player also who was a Maori from, you are pronouncing it Maori.
Yeah.
I am pronouncing it Maori.
Maori.
Yeah. But she was a champion. She became champion in Wimbledon.
Yes, I remember her. I've seen her play. Yeah, I don't remember her name.
I don't remember the name, but that's possible. Moreover, the whole trend of modern thought and modern endeavor reveals itself to the observant eye as a large conscious effort of nature in man to effect a general level of intellectual equipment, capacity, and further possibility by universalizing the opportunities which modern civilization affords for the mental life. Even the preoccupation of the European intellect, the protagonist of this tendency with material nature and the externalities of existence, is a necessary part of the effort. It seeks to prepare a sufficient basis in man's physical being and vital energies and in his material environment for his full mental possibilities. By the spread of education, by the advance of the backward races, by the elevation of depressed classes, by the multiplication of labor-saving appliances, by the movement towards ideal social and economic conditions, by the labor of science towards an improved health, longevity, and sound physique in civilized humanity, the sense and drift of this vast movement translates itself in easily intelligible signs. The right, or at least the ultimate means, may not always be employed, but their aim is the right preliminary aim. A sound individual and social body and the satisfaction of his legitimate needs and demands of the material mind, sufficient ease, leisure, equal opportunity, so that the whole of mankind, and no longer only the favored race, class, or individual, may be free to develop the emotional and intellectual being to its full capacity. At present, the material and economic aim may predominate, but always behind there works or there waits in reserve the higher and major impulse.
So positive.
There's a lot to be discussed here, so we'll take it up next time. But basically what he's saying is that everywhere the need for development is there. In fact, all governments are trying to give the right to education, the right to health. It is there all over the world. In India, they have introduced even right to education. Okay, every child has the right to education, trying to make it a reality. Universal health, that's why you have the government looking after all. Often the methods are wrong, and also he's saying very often the aim is material and economic. Mostly is based on needs of money. Okay, give opportunity to good man so that he can earn his living. That's what they are basically saying. But actually, behind that, there is the urge of nature to go to the next level. That's what it is basically saying. We'll take it up next time in
Good.
detail.
Wonderful. Namaste all. Namaste.